Okay, so today we're going to learn how to use the new Cabochon mold by White Gothic Studios. This is it, and we're going to be using a flesh colored polymer clay. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is first learning how to use the mold just to make the Cabochon faces. And then the next video is going to be on how to make a full doll head using just the Cabochon mold. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is to determine how much clay you're going to use or going to need in order to make the face. So let's choose a face here. Let's choose this one here. And what I like to do is just fill it up with clumps of clay just to make sure that I have the proper amount that I need. Okay. All right. Okay, then I pop it out and I'm going to roll it up into a nice ball. Okay, and then from the ball I'm going to roll it into a cone. Okay, like this. And then I'm going to put the tip of the cone into the into the nose cavity and press it straight down and spread out the clay. You notice that I'm not allowing the clay to rock back and forth in the mold. Okay, so then once it's in the mold, all you're going to do is bend the mold ever so slightly and it will pop right out. And at this point it's ready to be used in any of your polymer clay jewelry or mixed media. You put this in the oven and you bake it according to the manufacturer's instructions, and that's it. Now the next thing we're going to learn how to do is how to make a full head on a toothpick using the Cabochon face mold. Okay, so once again, we're going to determine which one we're going to use. We'll use this guy again. Okay, and you're going to determine how much clay you're going to want to use. Okay, and you want it to be slightly overfilled because we're going to be putting a toothpick into it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. All right, so once again, we're going to roll it up into a cone. Press it straight down. Okay. Now while it's in there, I'm going to put a toothpick in here. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to take another piece, oh here's my extra, another piece of clay and roll it into a sort of a circular pad of clay. Okay. I'm going to put it here on top and press it down. And then we're going to take another tiny piece of clay, put it into like a little coil, and we're going to just wrap this around the bottom section of the toothpick. Okay? Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. All right. And then at this point, we're just going to remove it. Okay. And don't worry about any markings along the side because we're going to trim it up with a couple of our tools, the X-Acto knife and a little dental tool. Now once again, if you want to tip up the nose, or if you want to, sometimes it's a good idea to poke in some nostrils because that gives it a more realistic look. Okay, and then we're going to put this on the baking tray, and we're going to bake this at 250 degrees for 5 minutes. Now I'm going to put it in for 5 minutes if the oven is already preheated to 250. If you're putting it into a cool oven after you set it to 250, you can let it stay in there for 10 minutes. And that's going to make it hard enough to work with it, and yet it will survive the next baking. And the next baking is when we're going to finish the face. So let's put it in the baking tray, and we're going to move on to the next section. Okay, now while we're waiting for the faces to cure, let's learn how to make some simple hands in case you want to make a full doll project. Okay, so what we're going to do is start with a ball of clay about this size. Looks like it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. And let's see here. And we're going to roll it into just a coil of clay. Okay, and flatten the ends a little bit. Okay, so a little discoloration there in the clay. Okay, so we're going to squeeze it and flatten it on both ends. Okay, and then right underneath the palm section, we're going to squeeze it and create a wrist on both sides. All right, and now we're going to take our little tool and scoop this down, make like a shovel shape. And the same thing over here. Okay. Now I'm gonna make the ends just a little bit more narrow. Okay. And then we want to make sure we make a left and a right. So looking at them, where they're both, you have a shovel and a shovel. Okay, you're going to put a little thumb indentation here and one over here. Okay, and then you're going to pick up a tiny little piece of clay. Okay, and you just want it to be the size of 2 little thumbs. Okay. All right. Make sure I'm on camera here. And then you're going to cut it in half. All right, and on one end you're going to make it narrow, and then you're going to fit it right into that little hole area. It's not going to really go into the hole. That hole is more marking your area so that you don't make 2 of the same, 2 left or 2 right. Okay, and then you're going to smooth it in there. Alright, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, and you want to flatten the center part of the fingers here. And now we're just going to put some finger indentations. You're not going to go that deeply into the clay. You're just giving a hint of the fingers. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just a hint. Okay. Alrighty, and at this point we're going to cut them down a little bit. Okay, and we're going to put a toothpick in here into the wrist area. know, because this is going to be hidden somewhere in the costuming. And then what you're going to do is you're going to kind of pose the hand and the thumb just ever so slightly. Okay, you don't want it to be too elaborate. This is just a hint of a hand. Okay, and the same thing on this guy. And then we're going to bake these next. Now, you want to make sure that your toothpick, that you can twirl it, because you want the toothpick to be removable so that you can put it on a wire in whatever project you're going to use. Okay, so let's tilt this guy this way and the fingers down. That's like a very nice doll pose. Okay, you're going to take a little bit more time than I'm taking here. And then you have a left and a right hand, okay? And I'm going to put these on the baking tray, and I'm going to bake these next at the manufacturer's recommended time and temperature. Okay, so now the faces are done out of the oven and they've been fully cooled. And now I'm going to show you how to build up the back of the head and to improve the connection on the chin area. So the first thing you're going to do is take an X-Acto knife or some other sharp knife that you use with your clay works, okay? And you're going to just go around the head and take off this seam line. Okay, and because the head was only baked at a lower temperature, it's very easy to just scrape off. Okay, and now for the chin area, what we're going to do is we're going to take off a little bit here so we can give it a little bit more realistic shape. Okay, and that's what we've done. And here you can see I just scraped it back a little bit. All right, so let me just clean up this little bit here. Okay, so now I'm going to take a bottle of the liquid Sculpting. This has been with me for a long time. It's still good though. And take out a little bit of a glob, not too much. Okay, and then I'm just going to rub it on the back side of the head here. And this is going to act as a glue to keep the fresh clay from pulling away from the cured polymer. Now if you don't happen to have liquid Sculpting on hand, you can probably use one of the Mod Podge products. They do have some sort of a gluing or sealing agent. Most people have something like that on hand, and that'll usually give it enough grip. It will grip the clay. So once you have your liquid Sculpting on, I'm going to take a piece of polymer clay and just roll it up into a ball. Okay, and then I'm going to flatten it down just into like almost a beanie type shape. Okay, okay, and then I'm going to put this right on the back of the head here. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're just going to spread it so that it fills up the area, okay, in the back of the head. And the warmth of your finger is going to help you spread the clay. Now at the bottom here, we're going to do a smaller piece. I'm just going to take a nice piece of clay, roll it out into a little bit of a, like a rice bead, you know, just a little rectangular sort of bead, and put that here. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to spread this out. Okay, and then little by little you're going to add a little bit more clay onto the head to fill in around the toothpick, between the head here. And then between using the tool and the warmth of your fingers, you're just going to keep moving the clay until it creates a nice back of the head shape. Now this is a good way to practice doll sculpting, but if you're just anxious to get on with your project, just remember that usually the back of the head is going to be fully covered with hair, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Now I'm going to put a little bit more of this on the bottom here on the chin so we can build it up just a teeny bit. Okay, just underneath there. Oops. Okay, at some point you'll get it pretty much all smoothed around, and then it'll sort of have that question mark shape from the side. You want the back of the head to be quite wide, right around where the nose is, and then it goes in like a question mark. So at some point you're going to, I just like lick my finger, put a little saliva on it. That seems to be a good spreader. And you're just going to spread this around to, you know, join the back of the head to the front of the head. Okay. And then when you get down to the chin area, you're just going to use your tool mainly and just smooth this out to give you a nice jawline. Okay. Once again, just licking your finger for a second. Okay, you pretty much have a nice little head. Okay, so you have a nice little head and you have a pair of hands. Okay, and you can bake this again, and this time you're going to bake it at the manufacturer's suggested time and temperature, and then you're ready to do whatever doll project you want to do. So that's how easy it is to use the new mold.